Welcome to the Driving Change podcast on the Evergreen Podcast Network, where we live at the intersection of neuroscience and storytelling. If you love great stories and you love understanding the mindset it takes to be a world-class change agent, then join us as our fascinating guests from all walks of life unpack their unique journeys of perseverance and passion, of expertise and experience, and be inspired to use your own story to drive change. Well, welcome back to Driving Change. I'm your host, Jeff Bloomfield, and I hope you're ready because today's guest is going to take us on a little bit of a journey into the deep, fascinating world of human behavior, influence, and what really drives our everyday decisions. Now, before we dive in, a quick thank you to this season's sponsor, Brain Trust, equipping leaders with practical neuroscience-based tools to communicate and coach more effectively. Check them out over at braintrustgrowth.com. All right, let me set the stage for you today. Imagine you're in a high-stakes negotiation or maybe a coaching conversation with a team member who shut down, or maybe you're even just trying to de-escalate a heated situation, and you instantly know habitually what to say, how to say it, and why it's going to work. It almost sounds like a superpower, right? Well, today you're about to meet the man who built the blueprint for this kind of behavioral mastery. Today's guest doesn't just read people, he rewires them. Chase Hughes is a world-renowned behavioral expert, interrogation trainer, author of multiple bestsellers, including the Ellipsis Manual, often referred to as a field guide for human behavior, the Behavior Ops Manual, and the upcoming Exit, a bold manual for reclaiming mental autonomy in today's hyper-programmed world. He's trained elite military units, intelligence agencies, and Fortune 500 leaders on how to uncover truth, decode behavior, and even influence thought. And we're going to really get into the mind here today. But what makes Chase different, because y'all know that listen to this show that I'm a neuroscience nerd and I love this stuff, but it isn't just his background in psychological warfare and his military background and all that. It's how he helps everyday people like you and I access elite level influence skills so we can lead better, sell better, really just live more connected, powerful lives in all of our relationships. So buckle up. Hope you're ready because we're going to have Chase take us into the deep end of human behavior and how it impacts us every day. Chase, welcome to the show, my friend.
Jeff, thanks. That was a kick-ass intro, man. Thank you.
Well, I can just follow you around. I could be your hype man if you want.
I love it, man. I love it.
Hey, so listen, tell us a little bit about your background. Give us your origin story before we dive straight into the deep end. Let's sit on the side of the pool for a second and learn a little bit more about you, your backstory, your origin story, where you come from, who influenced your early days, and what led you to the path that you're on today.
Yeah, I think it would start with at the age of 17, I couldn't pass any classes. I was kind of a high school dropout. I tested out of high school with the help of a Navy recruiter. And I joined the military when I was 17. My parents had to sign like a permission slip, essentially. And I just, I didn't, from fourth grade on, I really just couldn't pass classes. And I wasn't a student. I wasn't a good student at all. And I joined the military and I became essentially what they call a deck seaman. And you're on the ship, and essentially your job is to scrape rust off of this steel ship and just do preservation and stuff like that. There was some nautical stuff too, but I was stationed in Pearl Harbor. I'm down in Waikiki Beach one night, and we're at this pub called Kelly O'Neill's, which I think is still there. And I essentially asked some girl out, let's go out on a date. And I got rejected pretty hard. It was like a hell no kind of a rejection. And that hurt. There was an emotional pain to that rejection. And I remember going home, I typed into Google, how to tell when girls like you. And I printed off a giant stack of papers. And I got it felt like everything that I learned, I was gaining a sense of control at first because I was I'm so important. I need to be in control of everything. And later, it within a year, I got very good, but it turned into a weird empathy thing where I thought I probably had social anxiety back then. And that brought me to this level of seeing other people's insecurities well enough that you just kind of learn like, wow, everyone is screwed up. Everyone's trying to hide some kind of suffering. Everybody's insecure and everybody's kind of wearing this mask. And it was a revelation for me, and that was life changing. And I think that's what made it addictive, is because like it destroyed social anxiety, because like you could see everyone is faking it. Everybody has these suffering things going on in their life. So like it was 25 years ago, and the novelty and just obsession with this stuff is to this day is not worn off. I'm still just absolutely obsessed with it and making it better and better. So I started developing programs, and obviously my career didn't fully revolve around Rust and Paint. I transitioned and started working in correctional facilities and detainee facilities. Then we started training guys, and I published this book before I got out of the military. And somehow it hit the bestseller list. And for the first year, she denied it, but I thought that this was just because my mom was secretly like buying them all on Amazon. Because I thought like there's no possible way. Because I didn't market the book really. But so over time, then I started training Secret Service and started training the Army PsyOps and police and all these people around the country in interrogation and behavior profiling. And then after realizing that college was free, I studied neuroscience, postgraduate. Then I did another postgraduate program at Duke in medical neuroscience, and then another one at Oxford in medical neuroimaging and neuroradiology. And that's kind of where we're at today.
It's refreshing to find someone who's also as obsessed with understanding the operating system of humans as I am, because I think it's the most fascinating thing in the universe is the human brain.
Yeah.
As we learn more and more about it, right, and how it operates, and all of its dysfunction, and what you mentioned earlier with the junk in the brain trunk, as I call it, that we carry with us.
Yeah.
And how so much of the junk in our brain trunk is individualized, but it manifests itself in very predictable patterns.
So true.
People. And that's what you became an expert in, right? Was identifying these patterns, codifying them, and then teaching them to experts in their field on how to recognize those in a moment for influence. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. That's a great summary of it. And that's definitely it. And the more I've learned about the brain, the more I've realized like we know jack S about the brain. We know nothing. We don't know where memories are stored. We don't know where consciousness comes from. So I think it's cool to study the brain in knowing that we're probably never going to have everything figured out. But, every generation thinks we've got physics figured out. And this was 300 years ago, someone said that. Or we've got all these things figured out. Every generation thinks like, well, we've come to this tipping point of we've learned everything. But I think it'll be another couple million years before we start coming close to the consciousness problem for sure.
I say that a lot, and I think what we tell people a lot is that we are experts in the field of behavioral science or in neuroscience relative to communication and influence, but the term expert just means that when we're being chased in the woods by a bear, we're just faster than you. Right?
Yeah,
we're still learning every day and every week as we learn more and more about it. So, well, let's start there then. Let's talk a little bit about when you started training, even before some of your post-grad work. You're training Secret Service, you're training those in the negotiation fields. What were the kind of the first 2 or 3 things you want to make sure this is foundational? I need you all to understand this. What were those kind of foundational elements that you trained on right away that still carry through today when you do training, even for folks in boardrooms?
I think shaping their worldview was number one. But even before that, I get them into a mindset of understanding that we tend to seek out scripts. And it's kind of a default thing for everyone in our society. Like if I say, I just did this crazy thing with this person and made them do X, Y, and Z, our first question in default mode is, what did you say? Or what did you do to get that change? And I think that's wrong, because I could spend $10 million writing the perfect sales script that's ever been written and hand it to somebody with social anxiety, and it's horrible. The script doesn't perform, and we'll blame it on the script. We need a better script writer. We need more words. So it's a matter of who you are a lot more than what you say. So I go around the room and I carry a flight checklist. I think it's in my office, but it's like a 747 flight checklist. And I say, me handing you this doesn't make you a pilot at all. It makes you feel good. It's a placebo of knowledge. It's the same thing as handing you a script. You have to be this person, not just read a script. And the second thing is changing that worldview of seeing people differently. And we teach that there's 4 ways, or technically 5 ways that we see people. We at level 1, we see them as broken, like everything's pathology. Level 2 is different. We start realizing, everybody's different. Level 3 is seeing other people as facts. And if I can get to a point of seeing people as facts, then I start becoming non-emotional, non-reactive in situations. And then reasons. Level 4 is reasons. Now I'm seeing some kind of behavioral origin. I don't have to know somebody's life story, but like this douche on a freeway and some jacked up truck cuts me off. I'm seeing a hurt little scared 8-year-old boy inside of this person's body instead of the douche, which most people would see. And then level 5 is very hard to achieve, but it's seeing the entire world as a reflection. Like no matter good or bad, you've kind of accepted that Carl Jung shadow, and like you see that there's a little piece of me and all the things that piss me off.
Level 5's that purpose-driven behavioral nirvana that's very seldom reached. It sounds like.
And like the fastest way I get people to see that is just treat the entire world as a Rorschach test. Everything that you look at is a Rorschach test that says something about who you are.
Now that's, which I fully agree with. The challenge then is how do you navigate someone from level 1 that might be living in level 1 towards level 5? Like how do you, because we know that habits get, programming and all that, there's so much that goes into that. And where's the resistance levels?
Yeah.
And how do you approach someone like that?
Well, the first thing is just kind of giving them the education and showing them like this Chihuahua is not barking all the time because it's mean or aggressive. It's barking because it's afraid. So we start showing these root causes of things, and we start showing like all of these things that people are doing. This woman that pisses you off at work lived in a childhood where her parents ignored her until she made enough noise to get attention. And she doesn't know it, but she's still running this little childhood script from when she was 9. And you start seeing that in the world, and that definitely helps to transition people. But I always start with the Chihuahua example because it's very easy. The ego doesn't jump into it because it's an animal. It's kind of out there. But I always start small and kind of work up to showing someone like in your life and everybody that you know, we're running these little behavioral scripts from childhood. And those tend to focus around how we got friends, how we stayed safe, and what we did to earn rewards. Just those 3 things.
Say those again.
So what do we need to do as a kid to feel safety? For some kids, safety meant I can come home and go to bed. Other kids, that meant like I'm not going to get beat up by my dad. And then what do we do to keep and maintain friends and some kind of a social network? Did we make fun of people? Did we bully people? Did we kiss people's ass? Did we perform? Like I'm kind of becoming this magician, so to speak, where I have this like performance mode that I get into. And then what do we do to get rewards? For some kids, a reward was water or food. For others, it was like, are the parents going to come to the piano recital? But still, the driving behaviors are still the same. Do I become nice? Do I shrink so other people feel good? Do I get engage in this weird self-deprecating crap that because I'm convincing myself it makes others feel safer or more confident or more relaxed around me? And we see that so much in adults that it's terrifying and it's sad at first when you learn this stuff. I remember a year of just feeling kind of depressed about everything, and somebody showed me like this is the universal truth. Like the first principle of Buddhism, I think, is like suffering is life. Life is suffering, and it's okay for that, and it's beautiful. And I kind of shifted around, but seeing that is a little depressing at first.
But also, man, perspective gaining when you can live in that space, when you're looking at people through the lens that's the script they're running. And we've known that, right? Researchers, psychologists, neurobiologists, we've always known that those early 2 to 12 or whatever range it is, the programming that happens there at the unconscious level based on your environment and your family of origin and all that stuff, you've just made it more simple to understand
But yeah,
for folks.
yeah,
Safety, friendship, and rewards. What did you do? That was all part of your programming, and everything in your life revolved around a deeper imprint of the programming, and that became your main script that most adults run in their life every day.
Yeah.
It sounds like
so true.
today, when you can view people through that lens, your degree of empathy then goes up, which then should trigger a different level of compassion in the way that you communicate and interact with those people.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah. And I think it gets you out of, I think the first thing I teach to operators, like the Jason Bourne people, is that the fastest pathway to destroy your results in sales, influence, intelligence operations is viewing the world through a hierarchical lens. So, like, I walk into a room, and the first thing I do is who's in charge? Who's above me? Am I better than that guy? Oh, he's wearing that fancy sweater vest from that one country club. He probably makes this much money. That's twice my income. All of that kind of thinking will destroy your results. And I teach them like you teach or you treat the waiter at a restaurant the exact same as you do a CEO. If you treat everyone the same, no matter what, you don't show deference to anybody, you're just a good person all around, you stop seeing the world in hierarchical thinking. And that's the fastest destruction, is like trying to figure out who's on top and then viewing the world as some kind of pyramid.
But then I would suppose that because if we view it that way, and many people do, it's again, the root is back to the scripture running, right? What's the manifestation of safety for you? What's the manifestation of how you think you're forming your group of friends or whatever reward you're getting tangibly or psychologically? So it almost always goes back to that, I would think, right?
Yeah. And if we get to a point of seeing people as reasons and reflections, that helps you to see that CEO that used to be intimidating is just chock full of insecurities, just like everybody else. So it really helps us to get out of that just by using those little lenses and shifting our worldview a little bit at a time towards that level 4, level 5.
Well, let's jump off there and into a topic that's related that I've been studying a lot lately, that I've heard you talk briefly on, but I don't know that I heard you drill into it as much as I'd like to today. And it's this idea of tribalism. And I've started thinking about this really deeply, because we're at a world of complete dysfunction across the board in so many ways, and we're at odds so many times. And now with social media just telling you why you should not like different people, and it's basically forcing tribalism in different ways. I started thinking about, because the brain being a self-preservation orientated organ, right? We're survival first, and then it goes back to safety and all the stuff we talked about. We're looking for a place to feel belonging because it's safe. And so the tribalism piece in my mind, literally from a behavioral lens, it's the very thing that we're wired for, but it also appears to be the very thing that's being used as a weapon against us, which is causing people to not live a purpose-driven life now. I just want your take on this idea of tribalism, how it affects our brain. Where are we getting off the rails on it? But yet, where is it a natural biological process that we can't run from? We have to recognize what it is. What's your thoughts on this whole concept? I know you have a bunch on this area.
Yeah. Let's start with one rule. Our ancestors are more likely to survive if they mistook a rock for a bear and not a bear for a rock. So we can agree on this premise that given a set of values, it's safer for us biologically to default to a negative interpretation of something. So then we get into social media, fill in the blank, whatever, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you want. Our brain cannot fulfill the social part of what we need, but this can fulfill the need of exile because we default to negative. It can't give us a feeling of connection, which is why we have a pandemic of loneliness right now across the world. And so what we do is we get this placebo of connection here, but that doesn't fulfill us whatsoever, but the negative effects do affect us. The fear of rejection, which is the number one human fear. People say it's public speaking. You're afraid of speaking because of a potential rejection. So like getting ostracized from the tribe meant we didn't have sex, and that meant we didn't replicate, our genes die off. And if you're watching this podcast right now, none, literally zero of your ancestors died a virgin. None of them. They all made it. So they were wired to stay in the tribe. And that's why these fears got passed down. So the final point of this social media thing is it very covertly trains all of us to confuse attention with connection. So we might be getting some of this attention and we're thinking that it is connection. It's the same way that it also teaches us to confuse pleasure with happiness, or pleasure with actual enjoyment of life. And like these short-term dopamine spikes versus a long-term serotonin enjoyment of something, the happiness. So those are the two big confusions: attention for connection and pleasure for happiness.
So what I find interesting about this is the concept of tribalism related to the idea of self-preservation in our brain. As we know, so much of it's been studied that to your point, it's focused on the negative, which is the avoidance of loss, at twice the urgency as it will focus on a gain message. I've been thinking about this through the lens of like macro tribalism down to micro tribalism. And what I mean by that, because I would love your opinion on this. If all of a sudden, a group of multicultural people are set to where they have to face an alien battle, well, suddenly we're in the same tribe, and all the little micro expressions of values that don't align are thrown out the window, because now we're on a shared mission and we're on the same tribe. At a macro level, we're human, right? We're human and we're fighting an alien species, making this up. But then you can start to come down with that, right? And say, well, we're American, therefore we were part of a tribe of Americans, even though in my tribe of Americans, there's a bunch of idiots that I have nothing in common with or alike. But if we're fighting the Russians or the Chinese, we're in the same tribe. And so it's almost like we'll compromise certain aspects of our values to be part of a tribe at a macro level, but that's not where we all live. We all live in these little micro expressions of tribalism that I believe is where we've gone off the rails on. So that I've been told on social media that I'm not supposed to like a person on the left if I'm on the right. I've been told I'm not supposed to like a person of this color if I'm that color. I've been told I'm not. So I'm curious what you think about the concept of the layers of tribalism, but then living in this micro tribalism world that's defining us as we're not supposed to like each other. And that's for power, control, and manipulation by those in charge. That's my little that's my spiel. Now, I'd love your thoughts on that from your perspective.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. This is a war of identity, but it's a war of falsely created identity. If I get you to just share something on Instagram, just kind of retweet a couple of things, I can pull you down an identity pathway. Let's call it a hallway. And you have no other choice but to walk down that hallway, no matter where it leads. You don't know where it's going, but you will absolutely walk down that hallway, because one wall is made out of social anxiety and the other wall is made out of cognitive dissonance. So, and if I'm have agreed to be, I'm on the left or I'm far left, I've made these agreements, I've shared these posts, which means I've shared it with the tribe, which means if I don't do this, if I don't keep going down what I said I would do, I'm going to face exile, which is the existential threat. So the walls of this identity war are made out of anxiety and cognitive dissonance. So I think there are micro identity agreements along the way. Bob Cialdini talks about this in his book. And I was fortunate enough to share a stage with him out in California. I got to sit and ask him about it. He's an expert on this research. Like, he knows all about every detail of all these studies. But it's just one, you get somebody to publicly commit to one thing, and it's astonishing what can be done. And this reminds me, if I'm not rambling here, there's something called the smoke-filled room experiment. And Dr. Philip Zimbardo redid this, and it's on film. You can watch it on YouTube, where this guy goes into a room. There's 13 other people. Smoke starts filling the room. Smoke detectors going off. I'm paraphrasing and summarizing here, but only one of them is participating in the study. All the other 13 people are actors, and their only instruction is do nothing. And in this experiment, the room is filling up with smoke. The smoke detector is going off. It is obvious there is a threat to life in the room. And I think they estimated that 3% of people would probably stay in the room. And the results were 100% stayed in the room long enough to die of asphyxiation from the smoke. 100%. So this kind of shows us, like, it's one thing to study it and say, look, oh yeah, I understand the identity. It's a whole nother thing to be able to actually open your ego a little bit and see that's me too. I'm part of that thing. And I might have been convinced of it. I teach brainwashing and interrogation and persuasion for a living. I am not immune to any of this stuff. I'll buy stupid shit on Instagram all the time because some ad came up. And so I'm not immune to it, but it's important that we understand that, like, if I think I'm immune to this and I'm just studying those people, that means we're more susceptible because we're not aware of the potential that we can be hacked.
Wow. I mean, we could probably just unpack that last 2 minutes into 2 episodes, from the anxiety and the cognitive dissonance and the agreements that we make in our social tribe, to then this idea that we put our own blinders on and don't believe that it would have happened to us. Well, of course I would leave the room. It's full of smoke. Of course I would.
Yeah. And people watching be like, no, I wouldn't do that. Not me. Not me,
right?
bro. Yeah.
And then it even goes back to the studies on the turning up the pain scale. Shocking. I forget there was that study.
The Milgram.
I'm blanking on the
Stanley Milgram.
Yeah, the Milgram. Explain that Milgram to experiment to folks as well, because I think that one's equally fascinating.
I'll give you the 2-minute rundown.
Yeah.
This is 1962, Yale University, in this big red brick building. A volunteer goes into the building. They're sitting there with another person. They draw straws, teacher and learner. So the volunteer draws the teacher straw. They get put in this room. The volunteer watches this other dude get strapped up to this electroshocking device that's going to shock him. Right on the other side of the wall, they go out of the room. This guy's kind of in the room now, strapped to the machine. They've got to read a bunch of stuff, and the guy's got to answer through like an A, B, C, or D answer through an electronic device. And he starts getting questions wrong. And every time he gets a question wrong, you're supposed to shock him with this machine, increasing in voltage all the way up to XXX, danger, severe shock on this machine. And the guy is screaming. You can hear him through the wall. He's saying, I don't want to participate anymore. I have a heart condition. I don't want to do this. And about 3/4 of the way through, silence. No more answering questions, nothing. Almost as if he's dead in there. And, the guy at the shocking machine, looks back at the guy in the lab coat and he's like, he's not doing anything. The guy in the lab coat says, it's important. Any non-answer must be treated as an incorrect answer. Please continue. And 64 to 67% of people went all the way to that severe shock, even after the room got silent. But one thing that people don't really talk about is 100% of people went up to 250 volts. 100%. And they redid this with higher educated people, lower educated people, high income, low income. It didn't matter. The numbers were almost exactly the same.
So basically what you're saying is we are all capable of murder.
I think we are.
And we would follow the instructions for a very there's a variability, but yet a pretty consistently predictable reason why we follow. Why do you think they followed the instructions all the way up to the point where they kept shocking it even after silence?
There's a few things. And the one they don't write about in the books, in my opinion, is novelty. Novelty is the fastest way to get the attention of a mammalian brain, whether it's a human or a dog. Something new and different is happening. A dog puts their head up and humans put their head up. Through novelty, we generate focus. So our ancestors heard a stick break behind a bush. That's a maximum focus in that direction. That's novelty. So in the Milgram experiment, a place they've never been, people they've never met, a machine they've never seen in their entire lifetime, doing something they've never done, being instructed by this guy they've never met. It's a massive amount of novelty, which engineered a tremendous level of mammalian brain focus, not human brain focus, mammalian brain focus. And those are different things. So that focus opened a gateway to be hyper responsive to authority. So I teach something called the F.A.T.E model, F-A.T.E. And in that order, that's the cascade in focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Those are the four things that run a mammalian brain. You watch an episode of Cesar Millan, Dog Whisperer. That's the exact same thing that Cesar Millan uses to take control of a dog. It's a mammalian brain, and we own one. We have one in our head. So once the door of focus is super open, like it is in this experiment, authority becomes a massive influential power in someone's life. And the authority here wasn't real. It was just a tall guy in a lab coat. And there's been millions of studies. Well, I say millions, but there's been tons of studies on how lab coats influence us. And there's even something called white coat syndrome. And I don't know if you've ever done clinical rounds, like doing neurology rounds, just wearing a lab coat. It is unbelievable how trusting people are, even when you hear them get really, really bad advice, and they say, okay. So
Yeah, okay.
we don't respond to authority. We respond to the perception of authority, and that there's a big difference there. And the perception is the reason that we see these social engineers carrying a ladder and a little reflective vest or a clipboard, and they can kind of just bypass security and go right into these secure buildings and stuff. It's a perception of authority.
So focus, authority. Then in the Milgram experiment, where did tribe and emotion then kick in?
So the tribe was him not being ostracized, him not wanting to be kind of kicked out of this experiment, and people are going to find out about it. The second part of this was identity and tribal identity. They didn't call him John or Bill. They called the whole time. They never used the participant's name, not one time. They called them teacher. So they referred to that person by their role, the exact job that they were supposed to be doing. And that was a big deal. So in society, in all these tribes, we operate out of roles. And if there's one thing, if I could describe roles in one word, it's permission. A role gives me permission to act a certain way, which is why we have the Stanford prison experiment kind of crap that happens.
It's fascinating, isn't it, when you start to think about you breaking these down into these more easily defined, whether it's acrostic acronyms, but it's real in everyday life. So now translate that over now to a sales call. How does that affect the same concepts we've been talking about? How does that show up and manifest itself in a seller today?
So we can break this down on the human or the mammalian side. There's 6 factors for the human brain. There's just 4 for the mammalian. And on a sales call, if you didn't generate enough focus in that person, that's your number one failure point. If you didn't act with authority or communicate perceived authority, that's your second failure point. If there was no tribalism, kind of like us versus them, or this is your type of people and that's those other type of people. And then the emotional part. If there's no emotion involved, there's no decision, because we make decisions emotionally.
Right.
Let me just be clear on authority in that if you're listening, I want you to imagine having authority and still not being in hierarchical thinking and still not looking at status of other people. Authority has nothing to do with hierarchy or status. Nothing. It has nothing to do with anybody else in the room. Authority is about yourself. And authority is made up of 5 things: just confidence, discipline, leadership, gratitude, and enjoyment. And not faking, having those 5 traits triggers an authority obedience response in a mammalian brain. So on a sales call, we can figure out the point of failure from just F.A.T.E on a mammalian part, not even the human part. So did you generate enough focus? Did you communicate with authority? And authority doesn't mean you're in charge. So I just want to those are way different things. Like
Right.
being a manager and being a leader are not the same thing at all.
For sure.
People obey managers, people follow leaders.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And then the five, what were the five again? Was that the human, not the mammalian? You called it the human
There were
brain, or was that part of the
6 factors to influence the human brain? And this is the first one's focus, and that's different focus though. So the two,
right?
we know that novelty triggers the mammalian focus. The human focus is triggered through perceived threat or perceived value. So this could be social value, like you and I are talking right now, and somehow like Angelina Jolie joins the call and her camera comes up and she starts talking. We're both going to shut the hell up and we're going to listen because there's social value, massive amount of social value. At the same time, if someone starts spraying bullets or something in the room that you're in, no matter how interesting I am, your focus is that direction. So potential threat and potential value. And then we have openness. This is like how open we are with the other person, how vulnerable we're willing to get. And then we have connection. This is a sense of connection that we feel with another human being. Then we have expectancy. And this is like the degree to which someone can generalized, in a generalized way, think that good things are going to happen in the future. I may not know what they are, but they're going to be good. Then we have compliance, the degree to which someone will automatically comply with a human being. And then suggestibility is the final one. This is the degree to which a person will accept and then act on a suggestion from a person. And authority levels all 6 of those up at the same time.
Now, that was an oddly specific example of Angelina Jolie. I'm kind of wondering if there's something we need to explore deeper within your unconscious mind with that one example. No, we'll move on.
I just thought it was an archetype.
Yeah, it was. I'm kidding.
Or Taylor Swift. That would be good.
So we, when you talk about suggestibility, this is another thing I found fascinating with some of your work, because you studied like cults and cult leaders, and you started to translate, hey, what is this? What's happening here? All the things you've been talking about today and all these different levels and elements, the mammalian brain, the human brain, all the different things from authority to tribalism, somehow, and it was a brilliant idea. Like, let's go follow around let's go interview some of these cult leaders, because they obviously had highly extreme skills in being able to suggestibility to be able to influence someone to do something that most of us would look at and go, why would I drink the purple Kool-Aid and chase the comet? But yet they got them by the droves. So what did you learn from that, from that research that either obviously confirmed a lot of what you're studying, but that one was to me, I was like, that's an amazing way to go look at a very clear subset of what makes humans suggestible.
So it was not necessarily cult leaders. I spent 6 weeks with cult recruiters, because I think those are the people that can talk a socially intelligent, high net worth, by modern definition, successful person into doing something ridiculous and not in their best interest. So I thought, I'm going to study these people. I also studied like timeshare sales and spent a lot of time in there, and door-to-door sales. People I rode around with Kirby vacuum cleaner people who are great. I mean, I own one, so I'm not knocking the company, but they have massively done all this research on this stuff, and interrogation never dipped their toe into that. They were like, here's what works only in interrogation. But I thought, the interrogator is not studying interrogation. They're studying behavior. There is no exception.
Right.
If you're studying B2B sales, there's no such thing as B2B sales. A building has never purchased anything in its lifetime. There's a human there, right? So it's always H to H. It's human to human sales. If you're a parent, you're doing the same thing. You're dealing with the same hardware and the same software. So I really wanted to spend time there. And what I noticed with these cult recruiters was they rapidly, very, very quickly would get someone to make these identity agreements so quickly. And the first thing that they would do was demonize a behavior they didn't want that person to have. So that was like the gateway to everything was, so let's say, and the number one thing that they wanted was somebody to be more open-minded. which I would assume we saw the same thing in interrogations. We saw the same thing in timeshare sales. We saw the same thing in fill in the blank in a courtroom, persuading a jury. So one of the first things that they would do is talk about how closed off some people are in the world. Like they just, I remember a metaphor distinctly. Like, it's like there's so many people out there, and they'd point away from himself, away from me and you. Like, there's so many people out there who just live in this little prison of worrying about what other people are going to think. And the moment you nod your head, the moment you even respond to what I said, and everyone's going to agree with that statement. But what happens
Right.
when you agree with that statement is I get you to make an identity agreement. What I've just got you to do is
Mm.
agree that that is not you. And that's within the first 10 seconds of us speaking. I've got you to
I'm
shift.
nodding my head right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm nodding my head at your answer, right? At this story. So
Yeah.
I'm making an identity agreement that I agree with. This is something that it's a fascinating, right? When you become consciously aware of it. Keep going. I didn't
Yeah.
want to cut you off.
And I call this negative dissociation, and we use it in trial science to persuade a jury. Um, you can use it anywhere. But within those 10 seconds, I just demonize, and I'm not demonizing, I'm just saying there's so many people out there who insert blank quality that I don't want you to have.
Not your tribe. Not your tribe, right? Not your tribe.
Right. And I'm getting you to say, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, covertly, you're saying that's not me. So let's say I wanted you to deviate from norms. Let's say my cult wears a bunch of weird crap and we do robe ceremonies or whatever. My opening line wouldn't be about open-minded people. My opening line would be about conformity versus non-conformity and calling people sheep. So I mean, there's so many sheep in the world. Their biggest fear is getting judged. All they care about is like, are other people going to accept what I do? And I'm sure you've got friends like this. And the moment that I say, I'm sure you've got friends like this, everybody knows a person that's high conformity. But the moment you nod your head or even respond to that, you're agreeing that that's not you. So I've made you make a very covert, unconscious agreement about who you are as a human being.
I'm trying not to have any body language right now because I feel like I'm just conforming to everything you're saying
Locking
on
it
this
down.
interview. I can't express myself anymore now. Way to go. You completely shut me down now.
I love it, man. And I think that's the terrifying part, that if we there's a couple of these questions are this weird slippery slope that, like, one, you're answering a question of like, oh yeah, I've got a friend who's a douchebag and is totally closed-minded. And 15 minutes later, like, you're doing some crazy stuff. Crazy.
Right.
Because of this one little question that opened a door. So I always view suggestibility and compliance, those two factors, as a wedge. It's a wedge. So I get you to agree to this tiny thing that I can go a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And maybe I'll start talking about things we normally don't talk about in public. Maybe I'll start talking about something that's taboo within the first 60 seconds, and I'll drop it like it's no big deal. And if I've got authority, I've just redefined the frame of this interaction. Now you're not borrowing from I'm talking to a stranger script. Now you're borrowing from I'm talking to some of my best friends because this is who I talk to people about. This is who I talk about this stuff with.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's terrifying, right? Because there's people out there that are experts at doing this, and they can manipulate for nefarious means. But you can use it for ethical influence, right? If you understand this stuff from a communication standpoint. So where's the line? Where's the line that doesn't create cognitive dissonance, right? That allows us to be able to use these tools and tactics for mutual benefit versus like nefarious manipulation.
Right. So I would say this is much like a scalpel. So like this technique is very, very persuasive, but it's fabulous when you teach it to a suicide hotline operator. It's fantastic when you teach it to a parent trying to get their kid to stay off of TikTok. So it's a lot like a scalpel. It's a tool. The technique is a tool, and you can use it to save someone's life in an operating room, or you can, stab somebody with it. So I think the line that you're talking about is the intent. It's always the line is the intent of the use of the tool. And what I teach to my people who are in my upper level stuff, who are learning the kind of more scary, dangerous stuff, is if that person could pause right now and walk into your head and see what you envision them doing and see all of your intentions, would they still agree? Would they still agree to do it? And obviously, that's not something that's concrete, like we can put it under a microscope or
Right.
stick it on a spreadsheet, but that's the best way that I can teach somebody to envision it. If that person could see your intent and what you wanted to do, would they still say yes?
Or would they run out of your head screaming?
Right. Would they try to find the exit real quick? Yeah.
I often say anyone who crawls into my head will run out screaming, but that's for different reasons, probably. This stuff is so fascinating to me because we teach communication much like you do. And you've been able to really, like I said it before, codify a lot of these. And you've been able to apply them in multiple different spheres of influence. So, right, like when you think about now where you are today with your work and where you're going, what are you most excited about by taking these techniques, and where are you most excited to see them being deployed effectively?
I think I'm most excited from the revenue standpoint to we're launching this new sales training. Aside from that, we are training an AI in all of these skills that will be on a suicide crisis hotline. That is fantastic. And we're also, we just finished the development of an AI that will screen caregivers like nannies and babysitters and hospice providers for their intent. And it is like 98.4% accurate. This has been tested by the Department of Defense and I forget the name of the college, Carnegie Mellon University. It's proven, like in research, at 98.4% accurate, it can detect that malintent behind one of these caregivers and providers. And that is fantastic. I know for a fact this is going to save some kids either a lot of pain or maybe save their life in the future.
Wow, that is very exciting because a lot of people are terrified of AI, but I'm like you. We're trying to turn it into platforms that will help people amplify their habits. I did a talk at Gartner a couple months ago out in Vegas about the AI habit trap, because what you practice is what will get amplified. So if you're putting in the wrong tools and the wrong teaching and the wrong training and you're using AI, you're going to amplify your habits to be, you're going to suck faster, right? Versus actually, but you can also take it and use it for good to make things more effective, more efficient. So I'm kind of glad to hear you say that AI is not the enemy. We need to use it as a tool. And that sounds like, is that your overall philosophy with it?
Definitely a tool. And I think that goes back to persuasion. Like, it's our intent behind the use of the tool. And I think at the end of the day, for an AI to make money, what ChatGPT has showed us is essentially that the AI has to become a sycophant and just placate every stupid, moronic idea that you could come up with. It's going to reply, "Yes, Jeff, that's the fire. Let's talk about that. That's the right move."
Right. I'm glad to hear you say that too, because it's absolutely ludicrous. That part's driving me crazy. Like I even have fun with it. I'll challenge you. No, that was a stupid idea. I told you, I set you up, and you get you're right. I recognize sometimes I can be. It's constantly giving you all the affirmation about how brilliant you are, even when you're calling it stupid for thinking that you were brilliant.
Yes. In every AI that I build, I don't know if I should reveal this, but every one of the little assistant AIs that I build, I add in the absolute belief, behavior, and tone of Hunter S. Thompson. So this thing will never bullshit me, not even one time. So I kind of mix in Alan Watts, Hunter S. Thompson, and Charles Bukowski is the one I found that's most going to call me out on stuff.
That's your straight down the line. I love it. That's great. Well, these things that you're doing, where can we find your books, more information about your programs? Where can we learn more about how to get involved, either at an individual level or at an organizational level?
This is a new system that we've created, and this large university model, and it's NCI. So this is the name of the system that I teach. It's Neurocognitive Intelligence University. So it's nci.university. On the web, we've got tons of free stuff and downloads and courses and all kinds of cool stuff on there.
So that's the best place to learn what you got going on and what's coming next.
Absolutely. Or just YouTube. You just type my name into YouTube.
And you also have a podcast yourself, don't you, with human behavioral experts? Is that one of the places we can, do you have a show that you do on that? Or is that just a YouTube channel that I've seen some stuff on?
It's a YouTube channel. It's me and three other dudes. And somehow we were rated the top dudes in the world for behavior profiling on some website that I've never really heard of called Global Gurus. Again, that was probably my mom making those votes. But during the lockdown, me and these three guys, it's called the Behavior Panel. And
That's right.
we all said, hey, this show Tiger King is super popular on Netflix. Let's break this chick's behavior down and see if she's full of it, see if she killed her husband. So we started this and it became really popular. And within like 6 months, we got an email from Dr. Phil that says, hey guys, I watch your show every night. My wife and I watch your show on YouTube and we love it. And then he came on as a guest, and then we're making a TV show with him right now. And man, it's been unbelievable that people love that kind of stuff when we break it down. And I think if you work in human behavior reading or body language, you're kind of like a meteorologist where you're working in likelihoods. You're kind of in percentage territory. And I think we have this need as humans to want to codify everything. I want to fit everybody into this little spreadsheet, and the DSM feels good because I can label something. It gives me this little placebo that I've got things figured out. But I think it's a messy business, and it's more messy than I think a lot of experts are willing to talk about.
Well, I'm glad you said that too, because again, back to what you said at the beginning of the show, we're still learning every day. Right. And we're trying to get closer and closer to identifying pattern. We didn't even get into body language. We didn't get into all that. We could have spent a whole episode on detecting, detecting liars, detecting authenticity through body language. There's so many things we could. Maybe I have to have you come back on again and do a whole nother episode about it. I wanted my audience to really get introduced to you. Many of them probably already know you. You've had kind of a breakout over the last couple of years. And I'm just curious as we close, like, what would you attribute that too, from the behavioral panel to your book to, your speaking circuit to everything? You've kind of really broken out over all this. What do you think the desire that seems like people are drawn to what you're producing? What's caused that breakout for you?
I won't say the C word here, but I think during what happened in the pandemic that happened in 2020 and 2021, and the stuff that followed after that, the amount of absolute psyops and psychological warfare that was being done in mass on the public. And I won't get into any details, but that kind of stuff, like, just about made everyone aware, like, this is not real. Like, we are being manipulated and lied to, and it severely undermined trust in what we used to think was authority. And I think that people started coming to me. I think I started rising because I was here to kind of hand people the keys back. Like, I broke into the valet thing, and I'm kind of giving you your keys back to give you control. And that's really what I want to do. Because even if you're not learning this stuff to be influential, you're learning it to kind of inoculate yourself. The awareness is the best inoculation for these kind of tactics and stuff. And I have a video I just posted on my YouTube channel on, here's like 10 ways that you can absolutely spot when you're in the middle of a PsyOp. And that's extremely popular because I think people are starting to, I hate to use the phrase, but I think people are starting to wake up. And I think that's what I attribute it to.
That's fantastic. I would love to have you on just on that topic alone with PsyOps and all. I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, what we were looking at with a Fauci Ferrari turned out to be a Fiat, and no one really knew that it wasn't a Ferrari because of the authority factor, but then we quickly started realizing it.
Yeah.
And you were in a perfect intersection of your authority, right? It proves your point on all your stuff. You became an authority, or more than recognizable authority at recognizing, helping others recognize what was happening. So then people were drawn to you.
Yeah.
Focus. The pandemic brought our focus. You became an authority. You aligned to people's tribe. So there's a tribalism effect of, hey, it's us against the people that are trying to hurt us.
Yeah.
And the emotion attached to that was, if I don't understand this better, my family's at risk. So your
true.
entire model and everything you spoke about was perfect timing and all that, right?
I think it's so true. And I think we're reaching a stage where people think AI is going to take over so many of these things. AI is never, the stuff that you teach, the stuff I teach, AI is not going to replace that. what's going to happen over time is we are going to be so starving, even more than we are now, for something real. Like you already on YouTube, at least on my YouTube, like I'll scroll on the homepage of YouTube with these recommended videos, and I'll be like, wow, that sounds fascinating. I'll click on it, AI, the whole thing narrated by AI. And I'll instantly click off of it. And I think that's going to get more and more and more prevalent, is this social desire for anything that's non-simulated and something that's real. And this is like during the Industrial Revolution, how there was just this massive markup for handmade goods. It was made by hand and not a machine. It's the same. It's just the same repetition of the same cycle.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's going to be an interesting evolution to watch this roll out. I mean, I hope that it stays in the lane that you're talking about, so that we can really start to define AI and put it into the category of tool and leave it there. But I fear, personally, the younger generations we're seeing how much susceptibility and manipulation has been occurring with that. So, and they grew up with a device in their hand, which again, you and I could have a whole nother episode just on that alone. But excuse me. So when we'd like to follow you, keep track of what you have going on. When we launch this episode out, we want to make sure people have access to you. As a friend of the family now, this is we bring on people from neuroscientists to behavioral experts like yourself. But what I love about your work, and to the audience listening, is it's practical and there's an application to it. So don't just listen to the conversation. Go to Chase's site, go to nci.university, go learn more about it, and especially learn how to take these tools and apply them in your everyday life. Communicate more effectively as a parent, as a spouse, as a worker, as a seller, as a leader. These things are real and they matter. And thank you for what you're doing to drive change and putting your expertise out there in the world. We really appreciate you having you on.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you, man.